Hi, everyone. Employment is a hot issue now, and it's very serious globally in Western countries, in Asia, and even in Taiwan. Today, we want to talk about this, and hopefully governments and societies should look into the solutions to this worldly problem. We've invited Ms. Hills here and to share with us employment issues in Canada and in Western societies. It's your turn.
In Canada and America, there's a lot of unemployment right now, a lot of loss of jobs because of the economy. In Canada, they did something a little bit different. They put a lot of money into roads, so there were jobs generated from that. But depending on where you're living, that's going to, depend on how many jobs are available. For example, there's probably more jobs available in Taipei than there would be in places like Elon or Penghu, for example. Where I'm from in Canada, it's a small area, and so there aren't as many jobs available, and many of those jobs are minimum wage jobs. And in Canada, living expenses are very expensive. For example, an apartment in Canada, just a basic one, would probably start at around $500 to $600 Canadian, which would be around, almost 20,000 Taiwan dollars. And that's just for the basics, no furniture, no heat, no electricity, or anything like that. In Canada, they do have a really good unemployment system. So if you were working and then you stop working, you are able to, depending on how much you've worked, receive unemployment benefits for a full year while you're looking for a job. So I know that in Taiwan, they don't have necessarily the same kind of social service, so maybe you can talk a little bit about Taiwanese job market and what the prospects are like there, because most people here, Westerners, are either working in schools or they're English teachers, and there's always jobs available in those fields.
Well, I think the domestic purchasing power here is shrinking. So people are not spending a lot because of poor economy and also the euro debt crisis. I know in America, I think 1/4 of the population, the working population, doesn't have jobs, and it's pretty sad. And in Taiwan, I think our unemployment rate is also getting high, and the chairman of the central banking in Taiwan has predicted that next year more people are going to lose their jobs, and there are already a lot of people being laid off. And I know in Spain, it's also a huge problem. Like 25% of the working people are not generating income. So I think if we want to solve this global problem, we need to have new industries, and we need to create jobs, because traditional jobs, because of the debt we have created for generations and the way we're used to live, I think we need creativity, actually, and we need new ways, like, for example, maybe we go back to farming more, say local farming industry, and creating products that are more friendly to the earth, and perhaps I can't think of any anymore. So, do you want to put your thoughts into this?
Well, the Industrial Revolution has definitely changed the way that the world does business, because as more and more machines are created, more people are becoming obsolete. For example, in Canada, where I live, our town just got this shipbuilding contract. So this is something, new that people need to do, so this can help them. A lot of people, I think, are starting to turn to the internet to try and get jobs, to work online, and that's probably the field that a lot of people are going to be moving towards, because it's easy to do from home and you can make money doing that, just depending on what it is. And aside from that, I think that farming would be a good idea. In Canada, farmers are paid a lot of money to be farmers. So, growing up, living on a farm, my father would have got a subsidy from the government to continue farming if, he was giving animals to be slaughtered that would go onto the shelves for consumers. And so if the Taiwanese government introduced something like this, it might be really helpful to stimulate people to kind of move out of the cities, because it seems like there's such a lot of people in the cities right now, and that's part of the problem, is that it's hard to find jobs when there's so many people so highly educated in the same place competing for the same jobs.
Well, one of the president candidates has promised that we actually should localize farming and create jobs locally in counties and towns. And also she talked about branding. And the other presidential candidate, Song from the People First Party, has also talked about how to create jobs in the towns and the counties. I think that's one of the solutions. In terms of globalization, you just talked about people going online, trying to get jobs and all that. There is a huge problem with internet business, which is shipping. Because shipping does cost a lot, and the fuels that we use, and sort of breaking the borders and preventing fraud online. That's a big challenge, and I think Google tried to implement like a global financial system, like the Visa, Master, and all that to charge, but it's not that easy, because people are in nature selfish, so it's hard to really break that, trust. How to make people trust. So I do have a little reservation about this globalization, because it's created a lot of problems already for the world.
And I mean, also farming has that same aspect to it, where like a lot of animals are producing methane gas, and that's like warming up the ice caps, and then the ice caps are melting. And so it seems like any place that we turn to, try to bring about a change, it's kind of difficult, and people are suffering. Luckily in Canada, we have a national healthcare system, and everybody receives national healthcare. So if you're sick and you don't have access to a job where you can make money, that's okay, because you can still get health care. And you have to pay for the medications, yes, but they're not nearly as expensive as they are in other countries. And in somewhere like the United States, where you see people, that don't have jobs, this leads to poor health, this leads to, people living in squalor conditions, and then that looks bad on your country to see all these homeless people, which we've kind of discussed and touched on before. Yeah. So what is the solution to unemployment? It's hard to say. Did you go the way of Canada and try to invent something that's going to give a number of people jobs to try and save your economy, or in that moment, or do you kind of do it for a long term where right now that's fine, but 10 years from now, how is it going to be?
Well, the biggest organization for every nation is the government. And I think the government is the most capable unit that can try to lead and change. And I think right now we've come to a point that maybe capitalism is coming to an end because everybody is greedy and they just want to make the best profit and just want to utilize people and all that. So that creates tension between the laborers and the capitalists. I think it's time for governments to think about leadership and subsidize people that want to change the environment and also change the economy, because globalization really makes the richer become richer and the poor becomes poor. I'm pretty sure the leaders know this, but it's hard for them to say, okay, let's be not selfish and good. Because when we talk about this, it all comes to ends up with human nature. What's your opinion on this?
Yeah, human nature, I think people are that way. They kind of provide for themselves and their families first, and then they don't really think about other people and their needs and their wants. It's only about themselves. So the richer definitely do become richer and the poorer become poorer. I guess my thoughts on resolving this particular issue are, there's a couple ways that you can do it. One of the ways I think some people have suggested is actually a war, because that's going to generate the jobs that are needed, which is sad, but actually true. And that's how Hitler saved Germany from, after they had the First World War and Germany was so poor and they had to pay all the reparations, Hitler kind of saved them by creating munitions factories and soldiers, for their war machines. So as sad as that is, that actually does restore economies.
Mm-hmm. Well, natural disasters do actually create wars because we need an outlet, and that's pretty sad. Just reading back, 5,000 of history in either Oriental and Western societies, they've actually used war to destruct the, the current structure of the society and redistribute wealth. And I hope we don't come to that point, because then now we have nuclear bombs, and then that can actually destroy the whole civilization. Yeah.
I hope so too.
Yeah, you hope so too? That's it? Okay, thank you.